Much respect to the Detroit Lions. Last night's game against the San Francisco 49ers, utterly meaningless for the Lions. They didn't have to play their starters because with a win or a loss there, the number one seed in the NFC is still up for grabs with their Week 18 matchup Sunday Night Football against the Minnesota Vikings. So it would have been completely understandable if the Lions decided to rest their starters, but they didn't. No surprise, because they did the same thing 2 years ago, Week 18. They're already out of the playoff hunt, but they played spoilers to the Green Bay Packers, beating the Packers and taking Green Bay out of the playoff race 2 years ago. But what we saw last night in Santa Clara, their offense remains elite. Jared Goff is playing at an MVP level. Even with the absence of David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs can take on the full workload of RB1, the speedster that he is. Jameson Williams, everyone thinks about Amon-Ra St. Brown, and they should, but Jameson Williams is also a big-time threat, not just as a receiver, but also in jet sweeps in the backfield. And oh, by the way, the Lions also happen to have the best offensive line in the league. Their defense, on the other hand, we always knew there were areas of opportunity to exploit if you are the opponent of the Detroit Lions on a particular week. But last night against San Francisco, the defense of Detroit served up a hefty helping of Swiss cheese. Brock Purdy, without much help of a run game last night, threw for 377 yards, his season high, and had his third best completion percentage, 77%. You had two receivers going over 100 yards in Ricky Pearsall and George Kittle. You also had two additional receivers go over 60 yards each. But where the Niners fudged up, they committed two turnovers, both of them being interceptions, both interceptions caught by Kirby Joseph, and the Niners kicker, Jake Moody, missing both of his field goal attempts as well as an extra point attempt. That's Jake Moody, by the way, not to be confused with the other Jake, kicker Jake Bates of the Detroit Lions, which after seeing him try to seduce the field, if anybody needs to be drug tested, it's him. But it all comes down to this. Week 18, the number one seed in the NFC up for grabs between the Detroit Lions hosting the Minnesota Vikings. It's going to be a tight race. I think it's going to be a shootout with a dramatic finish, no doubt. But once the dust settles, you are going to have a 14-win team have to travel as a road opponent facing off against a 9 or 10-win team. That's nasty. It's long overdue. Playoff seeding should be based off of not division wins, but rather records and tiebreakers only. Divisions be damned. Arguing for tradition means that you're arguing for bigger rewards for inferior teams. Neither the Bucs or the Falcons are anywhere close to Detroit or Minnesota, but the NFC South, they'll have the home field advantage with 4 or 5 less wins under their belt. Gross. And there's only one playoff spot up for grabs in the NFC, and that is going to be the winner of the NFC South. On the other side, there's also only one playoff spot up for grabs in the AFC, and there you've got a 3-team race between Miami, Denver, and Cincy. And I think I speak for all football fans across the world that have no horse in this race. We want Cincy. Go Bengals. Joe Burrow is putting up MVP numbers. He is must-see TV. And the Bengals are the only team in that 3-team 7-seed race out of the AFC bunch that could make things interesting. And all but one of their 8 losses were within one score. They lost to Kansas City by 1 point. Their 2 meetings against the Ravens, both being losses for Cincy, were by a combined 4 points. If they make it as the 7th seed, they will have to travel to Buffalo to take on the Bills in the wild card round. And they'd certainly put up a better fight compared to the Broncos or the Dolphins. Wouldn't even be a shocker if the Bengals were to upset the Bills on the road. Hell, Joe Burrow did it 2 years ago in the divisional round at Buffalo. This would be the most compelling scenario for football fans because we want to see the best compilation of teams, the 7 best teams from both conferences. If the Dolphins manage to get the 7th seed, there's a chance that Tua doesn't even play, And even if he does play, we know how the Dolphins operate in the cold, playing like hot-ass booty butt cheeks. For the Denver Broncos, Bo Nix, it's a nice story, thanks, but no thanks. You have no chance against Buffalo. Certainly at Buffalo, we want Cincy.